In the Banshees of Inisherin, things that made the island's residents more in touch with their humanity withdraw from them, and they desperately try to reclaim it. This detachment emerges because of a variety of factors influencing their lives, further distorting their perspectives and understanding of what they believe to be valuable in life, and causing their dissonance. Their desire to answer the questions that lie on their path, though, frequently results in more conflicting opinions and questions than satisfactory answers. This emotional detachment and stifling becomes abundantly clear when Patrick Sullivan meets his former best friend, Dorothy, to discuss the sudden choice to ice Patrick out, and he frankly presents the reasoning in the ensuing dialogue.
I just don't like you no more.
The sudden silence and facial expressions that fall on Patrick's face is more than enough to tell a story of his internal conflict and confusion of Calm's words, as it sounds like he's speaking from another planet of unfamiliarity, which is contrasted by Calm's emotionally bankrupt expression, as if he's firm and confident in the validity of his words and his decisions that led to this realization, almost as if his calm and collected explanation was something he expected to occur. While it is a common visual motive and adds to the film's ambiguity, this overbearing emotional silence sets up the differing perspectives shared between Calm and Patrick, which reveal tidbits about their state of mind, emotions, and how they bleed into their lives.
You liked me yesterday.
Oh, did I? Yeah.
I thought you did.
Patrick is known for his emotional transparency and outspokenness, as his major sources of happiness come from his sister Siobhan, his donkey Jenny, and perceiving himself as a nice good guy. His contentment initially makes understanding others' sadness or fears difficult, shown when he dismisses Siobhan's questions to Patrick about feeling lonely. While normally happy, with only Calm having the power to influence his mood before, he feels to perceive others' sorrow. However, his discussion with Siobhan about Calm's emotions indicates the opposite.
Maybe he's just depressed.
Well, if he is, he could at least keep it to himself, push it down like the rest of us.
Patrick seems to know of these universally dark, confusing emotions, but he suppresses himself similarly to others. This aspect of himself will be touched on more later on how this impacts his journey. Regardless, his emotional suppression hurts him when Calm's challenge to Patrick involves some openness to thoughts he had long ignored. Calm's internal conflict leads to a sacrifice of something meaningful from each other's perspective, but Patrick is more forthcoming to how deeply this decision affected him. As mentioned earlier, happiness, simplicity, and contentment largely influence Patrick's perspective on life, including his later decisions. Lifelong conversations and memories shared with others, especially Calm, reveal the essence of life to him. He never concerned himself with having to fulfill any greater purpose that seemed proper for a man of his character, because he believed that he was already fulfilling his purpose by making use of what was in front of him. Patrick's mental torment arises from not only one of the major pillars of stability and purpose slowly moving away from him, but also how unexpectedly his pillar decided to leave him because of his identity. Why now should he change anything about himself, since it benefited him so much in the past and those around him? And why does it have to be now of all times that Calm sees his identity as a liability? His high pedestal of how he perceives niceness remains on display, influenced by the inner turmoil of these unanswered questions in his soul in one of the movie's most powerful scenes, even though he never expresses these unexplained questions directly. An emotionally bruised Patrick reveals that he's still reeling from Calm's actions towards his new philosophy and how it alienates him and betrays his perception of what he believed to be calm. After Calm gives his beliefs on the inherent obsoleteness of niceness in the grand scheme of time and declares artistic expression superior in terms of power of remembrance, likely in an attempt to make his ex-best friend understand his perspective and reasoning to wanting to follow this path, the drunken Patrick dismisses his claims after stating that he simply doesn't care about the importance of being remembered, and quietly mumbles these words.
Oh, God. Maybe you never used to be.
Although Calm didn't say otherwise, Patrick's questioning is due to him possibly misinterpreting Calm's words as his niceness and by extension, his existence as useless, but also being mentally anguished by the thoughts of how long was Calm holding these unspoken thoughts, and if he ever liked or considered Patrick a friend in the first place. If his niceness extends to others but not towards him anymore, was he ever worthy of being his friend in Calm's eyes? In contrast to Patrick, who was more concerned about the present than in the future, Calm's perspective comes from a man who's tormented in the present, because he can't imagine a future in which he never existed at all. His perspective is shaped by a deeper understanding of what he believes to be a fulfilling and meaningful life, while also trying to navigate the complex emotions that arise due to this realization. While his frankness and urgency affect his behavior, his demeanor stems mostly from his altered understanding of life's essence, creating something eternal to add value to life. Although I doubt Calm believes his memories with Patrick to mean nothing, and probably once shared the same sentiment about life's essence as he did, time made him face his morality, making him feel like their friendship's dullness is not worthwhile in the long run. In fact, Calm sees Patrick as an obstacle that's keeping him back from achieving his potential. The existential question of what have you done to prove to the world that you existed weighs on Calm, and it's one that he wants Patrick to question and understand for himself, which is made evident during his previously mentioned beliefs of niceness being obsolete and humanity's creations being the only few things that people will remember. His belief and attraction to artistic forms of expression could be seen as a universal human desire to not only find purpose, but to be remembered in an attempt to fill the hole that exists within him. The desire to be remembered has been a staple of humanity for centuries and serves as an inspiration to almost anyone who decides to achieve or create grand things in their limited time, for the creations being closely intertwined with their identity and validated by society validates their existence and proves that their dedication towards their craft wasn't in vain, and Calm views people who made a major historical impact on the world, possibly grappling with these same feelings and deciding to do something about it, which serves to further fuel his motivation. Although he doesn't believe that the generosity or niceness of people is entirely worthless, as he's nice to those who share the same desire to artistically express themselves, he doesn't see Patrick as worthy of his niceness in how he does others. However, due to how ambiguous his actions are later on, it could be hard to entail on what exactly his true desires could be. Although empathy is a scarcity towards others in the island of Inisherin, Calm's display of empathy towards Patrick shows that he still cares for him in some way. He understands that Patrick is dealing with feelings of grief and dejectedness for their sudden separation and offers Patrick assistance with his horses after getting punched by police officers and ending the reunion with a pat on Patrick's back, as if to communicate non-verbally that everything will be fine sooner or later, or just he has to get over it like he did. He also apologizes for the accidental killing of Jenny and defends Patrick in the process. However, his vow of silence and dedication to his music spreads his empathy thin. He constantly dismisses Patrick's attempts to mend their rocky relationship and instead reciprocates his attempts of expressing his remorse and attempts to understand Calm with scorn and disgust for Patrick. Although the argument could be made that he is justified to do this because Calm told Patrick to never speak to him again and that there be drastic action taken to prevent him from doing so, it could make him seem heartless, if not cruel at times, towards Patrick. However, his lack of empathy towards Patrick could not only arise from commitment, but also from not being able to truly empathize with himself, as his decision to confess his sins at a church could be a sign of him wanting to understand himself and his decisions that led him towards his path, to seek answers for problems that seem out of his jurisdiction. Does he believe that he is making the right decisions to improve his life and should feel justified? Patrick's belief in being a nice person extends to his empathy towards others, and specifically those who feel out of place in their respective worlds, like Dominic or Jenny. Although Calm's actions are beyond his comprehension, he tries to get to the deep roots of his troubles. However, his empathy could only reach so far, as his growing obsession with Calm results in the ever-growing feelings of frustration and pain, serving as a moral compass for the self-justification of his act as a necessity, such as when he lies to one of Calm's acquaintances about the death of his father in a successful attempt for him to go away. However, an outsider's perspective would view this as a selfish and desperate desire taking root over him, with his empathy dissipating towards the end of the movie, and being a witness to his questionable acts. It makes you wonder if Patrick is as nice as he believes himself to be. Is he simply a man who has succumbed to the island's cynical and detached nature of others, causing his niceness to fade away? Or is he now finally attuned with the repressed emotions that he'd been trying so long to avoid? Although Patrick and Calm have experienced moments of isolation, other characters are not exempt from this feeling. Siobhan realizes that she's been grappling with this feeling for a period of time, after being more acutely aware of the emotional toxicity in her surroundings, and Calm hinting that she knows more about herself than she would think. However, this distraughtness of not finding fulfillment in life and isolation is a sentiment shared with Dominic. Despite the cycle of repressed emotions stifling those around the island, he breaks free from this cycle momentarily, deciding to confess his feelings to Siobhan. Unfortunately for him, she does not reciprocate those feelings, and he replies by saying,
Oh, there goes that dream.
but was the dream of achieving fulfillment and happiness in his life as perfect as he cracked it up to be? Because in Siobhan's eye, this dream seemed cursed with clouds of uncertainty from the beginning. If she decided to wait for Dominic and reciprocate his feelings, she would have to stay on the island of Inisherin, which would increase her anxieties, making her less happy in the process. And if she let herself get to the point where her anxieties consumed her, who knows what kind of person she would be in the future? Would she be bitter and frustrated with those around her still? Even if Dominic decided to help Siobhan with her issues and give her the love she deserved, there is no guarantee that the relationship would have had a smooth sailing. His traumatic history of being abused and his seeming lack of a mother figure in his life would have likely haunted him in the future in one way or the other, which could harm the relationship. Even if he decided to overcome his trauma, would it be enough to keep the relationship afloat? And even if the desire to leave the island was non-existent, when she and Dominic had a nasty breakup akin to one of Patrick and Calm's, would they follow the same path and continue the cycle of unrepressed, unresolved emotions that stay with them for the rest of their lives, causing more misery for each other's companies? Maybe there are positive pathways in this dream, but the ones that feel most closely to Siobhan are marred with visions of isolation and misery. And realizing this, she decides to be more honest with herself, deciding to leave the island with the hopes of there being greener grass and fulfilling patches on the other side of the world, as she doesn't want to repeat the same mistakes that Calm and Patrick made regarding the handling of their emotions. Calm's remorse for killing Jenny is due to it being accidental, and how it ties into his existential woes about the value of his existence, which brings itself forward during the conversation with the priest, which he laments how his action made him feel guilty, to which the priest replied,
Do you think God gives a damn about miniature donkeys, Calm?
only for Calm to reply with,
I fear he doesn't. And I fear that's where it's all gone wrong.
if a donkey's life is irrelevant to God or anyone else there on the island, what standard could Calm use to judge his own worth? Him not being able to achieve anything that seems valuable in his eyes has reduced him to the belief that his life is as minuscule and forgettable as a donkey's own, as he could face an unexpected death like Jenny, and since there'd been nothing of him that's deemed to be remembered by anyone, hardly anyone would care. If death can strike at any moment, what is the sense of striving? Moreover, why share these confusing feelings if no one is willing to offer emotional support? Regardless of if it's due to their separate reasons and lack of empathy, or maybe both, nobody would really understand. This realization likely adds further clarity as to why he believes that niceness is inherently forgettable, as this view is influenced by observing other people in the island abandoning their urgency for empathy and niceness. Calm's understanding of death softens his blunt as a hammer-like demeanor, such as when he reveals to Patrick that the song he had been working on spurred him to have thoughts of playing it at Patrick's funeral, only for him to shortly ask after that.
Keep having thoughts about playing it for you at your funeral, but that wouldn't be fair on either of us, would it?
Calm appears to fight the urge to say something intimate, opting for ambiguous, toned-down comments. Does he think it's right to acknowledge after death a friend who's longed for acknowledgement for so long? Patrick's reactions to Calm's words greatly confuses him on what they mean at all. And if they're genuine and come from the heart, for why must it be through another man's passing that binds them together? Unlike his sister, Patrick cannot gain closure towards his life, for he must now accept and live with the unknown, changing aspects of his surroundings, engulfed by his ever-growing apathy. He says that some things there are no moving from, saying it's a good thing. But is it great for him? Or is that because that's the only answer that he's willing to accept from himself to tell? In the end, he is left grappling with more conflicted and unanswered questions about his identity and Calm's decisions. Now he says he does not care about Calm's actions anymore, as he recognizes the futility of explaining himself anymore, for explanations would not lead to anything worthwhile for either of them. Maybe it's at this point where Patrick can gain a tiny glimpse of Calm's perspective on life, but that isn't worth mentioning to Calm anymore, as a continuous punishment he's had to bear for his attempts of vulnerability make the act of expression meaningless, and to us the viewers, that unspoken realization is something we may never really know either. Though it's ambiguous, the Banshees of Inisherin makes one thing noticeable: fears and uncertainty suppressing our emotions to the ones we hold dear, which may cloud our better judgment of what we should do to combat them. As such, frustration will arise from wanting to express these emotions, but not being able to do so because nobody could understand them, and this leads to further isolation on our part to get attuned with these emotions and our positions in life. It lies within the individual responsibility to recognize these emotions, giving them the needed care and attention, which could lead towards a path of betterment. Sometimes this path to betterment might have to result in needing to be more honest with ourselves, changing our environment to better suit our wants and needs, and shedding our past. But for some, it might be easier said than done, since other people are inseparated from their place of origin, since unexpected factors can result in their choices to stay being shaped by unexpected factors out of their control. Their obsessions and desires give them the belief that their pursuit towards it will serve as a key towards righting the mistakes they made in the past. But when that obsession becomes so enormous that the key isn't able to fit into the keyhole anymore, the same questions that will lead them to their search of understanding and others around them will lead to more questions than answers toward the end of their journeys, giving the belief that it makes a better alternative to think that the pain that lives within themselves is better left unaddressed because it feels better than living with the truth of why that pain existed and figuring out how it could have been dealt with.